into 2023, based on the predicted by the PMKG or the Climatology Agency. We intensively monitor water availability in the reservoir, review the allocation of water, manage the distribution and delivery of water. Then we apply the reservoir operation pattern by taking into account the seasonal cropping patterns will be sufficient to reach the first planting season. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, apart from sharing our experiences in this very good opportunity, allow me to remind you of our upcoming event in 2024, which is the 10th World Water Forum. I invite all of you to come to Bali on 18 to 24 of May next year. We will be there with more than 50,000 expected stakeholders around the world, sharing experiences and innovation in responding to global water management challenges. Fortunately, the Vice President of World Water Council now is Patrick from INBO. So when he was here last month, I already discussed with him about our NARBO existences. So in that event, I think NARBO can be also have the relationship with World Water Council through the Vice President of World Water Council itself. There are 6 major water resources problems that we'll discuss in 10 World Water Forum to find solutions on innovations and immediate implementation action plans. First, water for human and nature. The rate of population growth and development has resulted in changes in natural and environmental conditions that affect water resources. Second, water security and prosperity. These changes in water quantity and quality can affect food and energy security as well as the availability of clean water in sanitation. Third, disaster risk reduction and management. The current global challenge related to water that has the most direct impact on society is natural disaster in the form of floods and droughts. So water-related disaster really the main disaster that happened in Indonesia so far. Fourth, cooperation and hydrodiplomacy has issued several topics which are: 1, cross-sectoral dialogue and cooperation; 2, inclusive fair collaboration based on consensus; 3, inclusive transboundary water cooperation based on applicable international water law; and 4, stakeholders communication; 5, equitable and reasonable utilization and not to cause significant harm, and effective dispute resolution mechanism; and 6, transparency and integrity. Fifth topic of this World Water Forum will be the water and innovative finance. Various constraints on the fiscal capacity of financing in water supply and controlling the potential risk of hydrometeorological disasters are challenges for all governments. We must find a way out of financial innovation. And 6, knowledge and technologies. It is only through technology innovation that we can improve synergies between
recording in progress,
energy, and food ecosystems. Smart water systems need to be built to accurately balance the fulfillment of water needs and availability. NARBO is expected to play an active part in the 10th World Water Forum, mainly under the hydrodiplomacy theme. Thus, make sure that all of you will present in Bali next year and provide implementable solution. Finally, allow me to again thank you for taking your time today. I hope you will enjoy this webinar. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Minister Basuki, for your great remark. Next, let's take a good look at the keynote speech that will be delivered by the chairman of NARBO, Dr. Imam Santoso, with also the president director of PGT2. Dr. Imam.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu. Greeting to all of us. His Excellency, Minister Dr. Basuki Hadi Mulyono, and also as former chairperson of NARBO, distinguished all committees and members of NARBO, all speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. First of all, it's a great honor for me to have the opportunity to welcome you again to this highly anticipated web gathering. Through this webinar, I wish we can strengthen our relationship within NARBO in order to manage water resources, increase our professionalism by experience sharing, and adopt the best implemented technologies. On this occasion, on behalf of NARBO, allow me to express my highest appreciation to the Indonesian Ministry of Public Works and Housing, Japan Water Agencies, all speakers, and active members of NARBO for your real support and contribution. So we are able to host this webinar today. Ladies and gentlemen, based on United Nations Water 2019, problems related to water have a major impact on human life. Whether it's the problem of clean water, supply and sanitation, drought or flooding. The next, please. This shows how important water is for life. Improper water management can have a very large and detrimental impact on humans, even exceeding the impact of earthquakes and community conflicts. We recognize that water resource management is inseparable from all parties. With regarding this issue, we carry out the principle of governance in all our programs and activities. Next slide, please. Nearly each year, more than 500 people die caused by huge floods since 2010. More frequent heavy rains could create harms to human life. Moreover, it can stimulate severe impact to the world economic. NARBO member countries also experiencing some water-related issues. It became urgent to share cutting-edge knowledge among members with mutual collaboration to overcome those issues. Sustainable operation and maintenance, establishment and development of water infrastructures are a necessity for NARBO member to adopt. Water-related disasters have a major impact on human life. It's shown from the table that many of the countries in Asia and Africa region suffer from floods every year. We understand that the current global situation is under pressure. This condition certainly affects our performance. However, we remain consistent in managing water resources in sustainable manner that pays attention to economic, social, and environmental aspects, as well as increasing attention to the current condition of society. Ladies and gentlemen, out of the natural disaster, floods are the most common in both developing and developed countries. Indonesia is one of the countries that have been hit by many disasters. Flooding is a significant and complex issue in most regions of Indonesia. As we know, flooding in several areas in Indonesia cause a high intensity of rain for several days. Power source cut off, public service stopped, road access blocked, and public facilities inundated. It's from the pictures that yesterday the rain coming to Indonesia and there is a flooding in Indonesia. The flooding in Bangladesh isn't just affecting rural areas. Urban and semi-urban areas are being affected too, where infrastructure is being damaged and overtaxed. Since May 2020, heavy monsoon rains and mountains runoff from upstream in India's northeast have inundated large part of Bangladesh. The flooding has washed away infrastructure, farmlands, homes, and livelihoods, and has displaced hundreds of thousands of people. The flooding has also destroyed 75,000 hectares of paddies and 300,000 hectares of others crops such as maize and vegetables. On 25th August 2020, Pakistan declared a state of emergency because of the flooding. It was the world's deadliest flood since 2020 South Asian floods and described as the worst in the country's history. According to the Pakistani government, more than 33 million people have been affected by the floods. There have been hardly any access to clean drinking water. Their crops has been destroyed, food is scarce. This situation remains tense weeks after the disaster, with large parts of the southern Pakistan still underwater. Ladies and gentlemen, thus on this occasion, we try to focusing on the objective of this NARBO webinar to clarify the issue and to clarify the challenge that we believe can result some outcomes that we can carry on for the better NARBO existence in the future. There are some points, outcomes of this webinar will be expected. First, actual situation of the flood disaster occurs in NARBO's member countries. The issues and the challenge toward disaster mitigation can be clarified. Secondly, that NARBO members exchange views on the issue and the challenge each other, and this result grabs new understanding from the first perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, that talking about disaster, as Pak Menteri mentioned, we have to concern about disaster risk reduction. This will encompass the three areas of activities, which are prevention or mitigation of hazard, reduction of vulnerabilities and enhanced preparedness. Third, strengthening mitigation, development and adaptation. To execute those activities, we need to propose policy recommendations such as policy and governance for water-related disaster risk reduction, water-related monitoring and early warning system, vulnerability and mapping assessment of water-related disaster risks, water-related disaster mitigation, preparedness, responsible, and adaptation, participatory and inclusive action, research, and developments. Finally, capacity building in research and water-related disaster risk, awareness, and knowledge management. The next step will be collaboration opportunities. First is country case study on the governance of critical infrastructure resilience and how it relates to prevent and preparedness for future water-related disaster. Second is further advanced works on how better understand the economic impacts over time of water-related disaster risks by doing country or region runs of models. Third, build on insight from the work on emerging risks to conduct a broader online brainstorm and emerging water-related disaster with wider community and international water bodies. Ladies and gentlemen, lastly, I would like to remind us that, as Pak Menteri Basuki said, the upcoming event on May 2, 2024, the World Water Forum will be held in Bali. And I hope NARBO can participate actively in that forum. Finally, I would like to conclude that some relevant strategies regarding infrastructure to enhance resilience against disaster should be taken into account, especially related to prevention, emergency response, and post-disaster reconstruction. And hence, to conduct our programs, we continuously improve cooperation with other parties, including NARBO's members. That is why it is important to strengthen our relationship in NARBO, and hopefully, by maintaining our network, NARBO will get stronger to bring better prosperity to the people. That's all my speech today. Thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi Santi Om. Salam.
Thank you, Dr. Imam, for your wonderful speech. Ladies and gentlemen, in the next few minutes, we'll hear from two expert speakers. First, we'll hear from Dr. Doan Tuyetnya, who will give us an overview of floods due to Soncha typhoon and disaster risk management in Vietnam. Dr. Doan Tuyetnya is a senior specialist for water resources engineering, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development of Vietnam. She got her PhD from Vietnam National University. Then, at the other point, we'll hear from Dr. Robin Kumar Biswas that will share some contextual analysis and best practices in Bangladesh, which is the recent floods and its management approach for the northeast region of Bangladesh. Dr. Robin Kumar Biswas is a superintending engineer, Bangladesh Water Development Board. He got his PhD from Japan. If you would like more information about their biography, you can access the website of NARBO. After both presentations, we will have time for question and answer session. Please submit your questions in the chat box or raise your hand if you have any question. I monitor the window and call on people to ask their question aloud. But if you have any question during the presentation, please type them in the chat box. I'll bring them up during Q&A session. After we finish the Q&A session, we'll have closing remarks that will be delivered by Mr. Toshiro Suzuki, Director General of International Affairs of Japan Water Agency. In case of any technical issues, please signal me in the chat. We'll try to help you resolve it quickly. So let's get started. Dr. Doan Tuyetnya, are you ready? 25 minutes is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm ready. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to join this webinar together with you. Today, my presentation, I would like to share with you the central flooding in 2022 and disaster management in Vietnam. Long time ago, I'm working for the Directorate of Water Resource. Now I'm working for the Vietnam Disaster Management Authority. My presentation have 4 components. Next slide, please. The first one, I would like to introduce with you a little bit information, background information of Vietnam. Next slide, please. You know, the Vietnam is located in the Southeast Asia, border with China, Laos, and Cambodia. And we have 3 major areas. The first one is the Red River Delta. Red River Delta to the north. And the latter place still with a narrow coastal plain in the middle of the country, and the Mekong Delta in the south. Next slide, please. In my country, we have more than 2,000 rivers, longer than 10 kilometers. And we have a 14 river system, which a catchment area of the over 2.5 thousand kilometers. And out of the total, more than 1 million kilometers square basin area of the local and transitory river in Vietnam. And we just have only less than 30% is located within the country. And average rainfall is more than 2,000 millimeters. And especially heavy rain of the Bạch Mã in the middle area in my country, more than 5,000 milli. Next slide, please. And you know, in 2020, there is a very big flooding in the central area. In the October for 2022, Sơn Ca typhoon is a name, Vietnamese name is the typhoon number 5. From the Da Nang city to Quảng Nam province and move to the east and southeast direction. And the storm is very, very strong and force at the scale number 8, and wind speed around 62 to 72 kilometers per hour, and gusting scale around 10. In this typhoon bring heavy rain to the center of Vietnam, and flooding occurred in many areas in Quảng Bình, Quảng Trị, Thừa Thiên Huế, and Đà Nẵng. For five provinces in the central area in my country. Next slide, please. And in this because of this typhoon, the very big flooding in the central area, and the damage and loss due to the Sơn Ca typhoon and flooding. 8 people died, and more than 75,000 houses submerged under the water. And agriculture, more than 318 hectares of the rice and secondary crop damaged. And transport station is the North-South National Railway disrupts. And 2 landslide point in the Quảng Bình and Quảng Trị province. Next slide, please. responding activity by the central and local government. For this typhoon at the central level, we have many telegraphs number, and Deputy Prime Minister, he has to fly from the Hanoi, is the capital, to the Da Nang city in the middle area, and he has to set that and to meeting with the response to floods and typhoon, and the border gets closed, the vessel and ship to set the harbor. And at the provincial level, at the Thừa Thiên Huế and Quảng Nam, we already asked the school students stay at home, and 7 central province operates the inter-reservoir to reduce the flood risks to the people in the downstream. You know, in the middle area in my country, there are many hydropower in the upstream. And disaster risk management in Vietnam. Vietnam is one of the most hardest country in the Asia Pacific region, and with the coastal line of the more than 3,000 kilometers. And we face with the hazards like the storm, floods, landslide, drought, water intrusion, and coastal erosion. And Vietnam is the rank among the 5 countries likely be most affected by the climate change. And in my country, we also have a 22 type of disaster. More than 17% of the country population live in coastal communities. And over the past 20 years, disaster costs 500 people and missing person per year, and an economic loss about 1 to 1.5%. Typhoon, tropical low pressure, floods, flash floods, landslide, droughts, saline intrusion as a typical natural disaster in Vietnam, and the causing enormous loss to life and property. And you can see on the screen, you can see the floods. It's one of the major causes of this and economic loss in Vietnam. And I also would like to introduce with you the National Steering Committee for the Disaster Management. Next slide, please. Our committee vice chairman, vice prime minister is the chairman of the National Steering Committee for Disaster Management. And under of the vice prime minister, we have 4 main ministry. First one is the Director General of Vietnam Disaster Management Authority. The other guy is very important, is the Minister of Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. And the third one is the Vice Minister of Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. And the fourth one is the representative leader of Ministry of Defense. And other ministry, they also is a member of the National Steering Committee for Disaster Management. Next slide, please. You can see flood risks management in Vietnam. We have a reinforced dye system. We also have an enhanced flood control work, reservoir, way, etc. something, enhanced monitoring system, applies the science and technology and international cooperation. And the last one, we also care about the community awareness raising and CBDRM. Next slide, please. For the rainforest dye system, in my country, we have more than 9,000 kilometers dike. And in the north and the north central coast, we almost of the dye is located at the north and north central coast. More than 7,000 kilometers of the major river system for flood discharge. And in the central and south central coast, more than 1,000 kilometers sea dye to prevent only floods and high tide. And in the south region, we have less than 1,000 kilometers of the sea dye and river embankment. Next slide, please. And for the enhanced flood control works, we have more than 6,000 irrigation reservoirs, with the total capacity about the more than 40 billion cubic meter. You can see on the screen, we have 11 inter-reservoir system. I already give you the information of the reservoir for each major river basin, including Hồng Thái Red River Basin and Cửu Long River Basin. Next slide, please. And for the enhanced monitoring system, now the Vietnamese government, we try to set up more the monitoring system. Until now, we just have only 7 weather radar stations, and maybe next year we will set up more the radar station. For the meteorological station, we have more than 180 meteorology stations, and we also have 2,500 rainfall stations, including 2,000 automatic stations. And we also have 51 the multi-hazard warning stations. And we also have a fishing vessels monitoring system. In my country, we have nearly 3,000 the vessel. Next slide, please. And for the applied science and technology, now we set up many real-time monitoring, and we promote the research and apply the science and technology to improve the effectiveness of the flood risk management. In some very important point, we already set up the camera and the real-time hydrological station. Next slide, please. And for the enhanced international cooperation, we, now Vietnam, we are the member of the VDDMA, and in this year, Vietnam is the chairman of VDDMA. I'm very sorry, it's ACDM, not VDDMA. And for the enhanced international cooperation, we already care about the strengthened cooperation with country, territories, and development partner, donor, and scientific research agency to share the information, experience, transfer, and apply the new technology in flood management. And the last one, we can for the community awareness raising and CBDRM, we already care about the promoting the information communication, sharing information and data, organizing activity to improve communication efficient and disaster management, increasing the participant of the people, business, social organization, and community, developing the disaster response team, and training, guiding, and sharing experience on disaster reduction. Thank you very much. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sujat Ngao, for your amazing presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, now without further ado, we will turn the time over to the second speaker, Dr. Robin Kumar Biswas. Are you ready to use your 25 minutes for your presentation? Dr. Robin Kumar, are you already with us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. The organizer and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from Bangladesh and good morning and good evening for the respected audience from different time zones. I'm Dr. Robin Kumar Biswas. I'm working as a superintending engineer in Bangladesh Water Development Board. But today I'm going to talk about recent floods and its management approaches for the northeast region of Bangladesh. So let me start with the the figure that shown in the slides. So you see, this is a kind of the water that is coming from the upstream area located in India to Bangladesh. And as a consequences of this water that is coming from India, you can see we have a river embankment with levee, and this levee breaching is frequently occurring in Bangladesh, and as such, the lives, livelihood, and agriculture are often damaged by this water. And you can see this kind of when the water is entering to this area, then it's becoming like a sea in the bottom figure. So let me talk about briefly about the northeast region of Bangladesh. And this area is comprised of 24,265 square kilometers. And it has a special natural features. We called it haud. Hauds are a kind of natural saucer-shaped basin where water accumulates. And we have 373 hauds in the northeast region of Bangladesh. And this haud comprises of about 8,590 square kilometers. And this area remains underwater between May to November. And this area supports the livelihood of about 19.37 million of people, which mostly depends on agriculture and fisheries. And annually, about 6 million tons of paddy are produced in each year. But ironically, if you are looking this area, we have 28% of population living below the poverty line in this area. And the other special features are that this area is crisscrossed by 87 rivers, and the total river length is about 4,000 kilometers. Out of these 87 rivers, 23 rivers are perennial rivers and 64 are seasonal rivers. And we have 20 numbers of cross-border rivers. That means water is coming from outside of that country, about 20 through 20 numbers of rivers. And let me see how this haud area is contributing to the national economy. In terms of national rice production, it contributes about 17% of the total rice production in Bangladesh. And in terms of total fish production, this area contributes about 3% of the total fish production. And it supports the livelihood about 11.25 million people. And it has a kind of habitat for rich ecosystem. So this area, the northeastern part of Bangladesh, is contributing for the food security and the protein security and for the biodiversity of the country, supporting the biodiversity of the country. So this area is very, very crucial for in the sense of Bangladesh. What are the important issues in this northeastern Howard region? If you are seeing that we have a kind of the rice, about 3.33 million hectares of rice that is often been damaged by the flood, pre-monsoon flash flood. And we have a kind of the special embankment system in this area. We call it submersible embankment. This submersible embankment is supporting the ecosystem, but because of the pre-monsoon flash flood, we often experience failure of this submersible embankment. And because of this failure of embankment, every year we need to maintain the submersible embankment. And we have an issue of delayed drainage in the post-monsoon, and that also kind of the that also hindering the rice cultivation season in this area. Apart from this agricultural damage and embankment damage, we have a problem of having the sediment-related issues like riverbank erosion, and that is also causing the damage to private and public properties in this area. How this water is coming in this area? If you are looking at the watersheds and hydrology, so this is the figure of the northeastern region of Bangladesh, and this region is being surrounded by three big basins. One is kind of the Meghalaya basin, and one is Borak basin, and one is Tripura basin. These three basins is located outside of this country. If you are looking at the rainfall contribution, you can see that the southwest monsoon that is happening between June to September, 75% of the rainfall is happening between June to September. And we have some autumn rainfall, but this rainfall is very small. And also the northeast monsoon rainfall, December to March, that is very, very small, only 2%. But if you are looking at the spring reversal, April to May, 18% rainfall happened in this basin. But this rainfall is very, very crucial for for the northeast region of Bangladesh, because at that time the only rice that people can grow in this area is being mainly hampered. So if you are looking at the topography of this area, you can see the west-east slope is about 10.9 centimeter per kilometer, whereas the east-west slope is 7.3 kilometer per 7.3 centimeter per kilometer. And if you are looking at the central part, north to south slope, this slope is only 0.35 centimeter per kilometer. That means when we have rainfall in the upper catchment area, the water is accumulating in the central part of this region. And because of this very flat slope, water cannot drain easily to the sea. So, and if you are looking at the contribution of the rainfall, then contribution of the water, you can see that about 68% of the rainfall water is coming from the Meghalaya, Assam, and Tripura basin, and 32% of the water is generated within Bangladesh. And we have appreciable landscape in the west to center and east to center, but we have a central depression, and we do not have appreciable landscape in the north to south direction. So that is causing huge drainage problem and also the flooding problem in this area. And if you are looking at this rainfall distribution pattern in this area, you can see that it is increasing 2,000 millimeter from north to east direction to 6,000 millimeter in Bangladesh. And when it is crossing the border of Bangladesh, and it is becoming 12,000 millimeter. 12,000 millimeter means about 12 meter of rainfall is happening in the upstream catchment area. And the total annual water is around 173 billion meter cube, and 40% originates from rainfall over the northeast region, and 60% is added as external inflow from the Indian catchment. And 95% of the total water runs during May to November. And if you are looking at the recent floods in this area, you can see we have a kind of the cutoff or danger level of this flood is about 6.4 meter mean sea level. But if you are looking that we have a frequent flood in 2004, we had a flood, and then in 2010, we had also had a flood. In 2017, we also had a flood, and in 2022, we had a flood. And this frequency is kind of increasing in recent times. If you are looking at the recent flood in 2017, you can see that there is a huge rainfall is happening in that Cherrapunji or in the Indian subcasement, and we have a kind of the rainfall in the Silchar or Assam, and we also have a huge rainfall in the William Nagar in the Indian catchment. So you can see that there was 1,000 millimeter of rainfall happened between 31st March to 5th of April. And then we have 300 millimeter of rainfall happened between 19th to 25th April. And then we have a kind of the 450 millimeter rainfall happened in 31st March to 5th April in Silchar, Assam. That means in the Borak Basin. And so that means we have a kind of the rainfall in the Meghalaya Basin, Borak Basin, and the Tripura Basin. So in these three basins, we had a huge rainfall in 2017. And if you are looking at the rainfall in Bangladesh, we also have a severe rainfall in Bangladesh as well. So you can see we have a kind of the rainfall of about 630 millimeter within a span of only 7 days in Bangladesh, and also 450 millimeter of rainfall in Sunamganj as well. As a consequence of this huge rainfall, we had a kind of flood in 2017 at the last week of the March. And if you are looking at the recent floods in 2022, you can see that the flood starts in April 1st, and it kind of continues up to 15 days. And you can see about 60% of this area become inundated between 17 to 30 June 2022. And if you are looking at the rainfall pattern in this area, then in 2022, we have a kind of the rainfall in the Maushingram, about 350 millimeter, and we have rainfall in the Cherrapunji about 506 millimeter. We have rainfall in Silchar about 114 millimeter. But if you are looking, we have very small rainfall in Bangladesh part. That means in Sylhet, we have only 98 millimeter of rainfall, and in Sunamganj, we have only 54 millimeter of rainfall. That means in 2022, we experienced this flood because of the rainfall in the upstream basin. And why this flood is kind of becoming very, very complicated in the case of Bangladesh. If you are looking at the conveyance capacity of the river, then in the normal flow condition, we have a conveyance capacity of 1600 meter cube per second in the Surma River Sylhet. And in the normal case, we have a kind of the conveyance capacity about 4,000 meter cube per second in the Sunamganj area. But during 2022, we received the water discharge about 2,000 meter cube per second in the Surma River at Sylhet, and in about 9,000 meter cube in the Surma River at Sunamganj. So that means the water flow was about 2 times higher than the normal flow in this area. Apart from this high flow, we have a very small surface water slope. That means that surface water slope reduced about 1 centimeter per kilometer. So in one hand, we had very high flow. On the other hand, we had a very small surface water slope to drain this water. So that aggravate the flooding situation in this area. If we are looking that normally we consider that if we had a slope, water surface slope about 5 centimeter per kilometer, that can efficiently drain the water from this basin to the outlet. But due to tailwater level, due to rise in the tailwater level rise, there are 2 kinds of conditions. One is we have a tidal fluctuation in the outlet. So if we have a flood that is coincides with the high tide, then the tailwater level may rise, and that is causing about the reduction of the hydraulic gradient. And this time we had a hydraulic gradient about 2.5 centimeter per kilometer, and available river bed gradient in the Surma river was about 3.4 centimeter per kilometer. So in summary, we can say that in one hand, we have too much water, and then on the other hand, we have too much flat river gradient. So the both condition is creating very huge flood in this area. And we have also the natural constraints, and that is required the management for flood. And if you are looking at the water bed level, I mean river bed level, you can see that the area demarcated by red circle, you can see we have a huge sediment deposition in this area. That is kind of the raising the bed. And because of the huge sedimentation in the river bed, you can see there is a kind of the very a small slope is developing. You can see in the upstream area, we have a huge slope, but in the downstream area, we have a very small slope. So that is causing, that is impeding the flood drainage. And if we are comparing why this, early flood is very, very devastating in the case of northeastern region of Bangladesh, you can see that in this area, we have the rice cultivation is high variety rice is producing out of the total area, 82% of the area is producing high yielding variety rice. And we have hybrid rice, about 14% of the total area, and 4% of the area is practicing local varieties of rice. And if you are looking at the yield, then you can see that the high yield varieties is giving much higher yield than that of the local varieties. And if you are looking at the timing requirement in the third plates I have put here, it says that about if you are going for the high varieties, if you are cultivating BR28, it requires 140 days for harvesting, and the the transplantation starts at the last week of December, and it continues, and the harvesting continues up to June. And BR29, we have very high yielding about BR29. It took about 155 days to 165 days, and we can transplant it at the last week of November. But the harvesting time it took about the end of May, and we have respectively the BR45, Dina, and local varieties. And if you are looking at the frequency of the flood in this area, we are experiencing flood in March. Maybe this is very 8 times, starting from 1972 to 2017. We have experienced 8 times flood in March and 145 times flood in April and 502 times in May. And if you are looking at the criticalness of this April flood, so transplantation actually starts in the mid of December in this region, and the flowering stage of rice is at the beginning of the April. So, and the harvesting time is end of the May. So if we have flood, then in the flowering stage, then most of the paddy will be damaged. And the high yielding variety rice, that is BR29, it actually takes more than 160 days. And this in this area, the local people, the people are growing the high yielding varieties, and that is oftenly exposed to the flood. So this is very, very important from the management perspective of flood in this area. So what could be the next solution? So we can convince the people for shorter duration of rice for managing the flood. So if they can cultivate the shorter duration rice, so the rice will be less vulnerable to flood. And then we need to monitor the embankment So we are thinking of a OFGIS-based embankment information and monitoring system so that we can identify the vulnerable location of the embankment to maintain it before the flood is coming. And then we need to strengthen the pre-monsoon flood forecasting system through continuous research and development. And to strengthen the pre-monsoon flood forecasting system, we need to think of the data sharing between India and Bangladesh. So if we can have the data from the Indian side, then we can actually improve our rainfall forecasting system. And if we can improve our rainfall forecasting system, we can develop a good hydrological model, and that model can give us the monsoon flood forecasting, good monsoon flood forecasting system. And we also need to strengthen the submersible embankment system. And for submersible embankment system, we need to go for kind of the carpeting of the embankment with green grasses, or we can wrap it up with the geotextile. Or maybe we need afforestation in the embankment slope to protect against wave erosion. And then we need to have a detailed sedimentation study and plan maintenance dredging. This is very, very important in the sense that if you are looking at the land territory of this area, we have a very steep slope in the upstream area, and then we have a very mild slope in the very downstream area. That means water and sediment is coming from steep slope to very mild slope, and that is actually accelerating the sediment deposition processes. So we need to think of it how we can manage this huge sedimentation. And we need to think of the protection measures against protection measures at vulnerable riverbank erosion points. And we are actually searching for alternative flood diversion options or water retention basins. As I told you that we have 373 houses in this area. So we can use part of this house system as a water retention basin. And using the Howard as a water retention basin, we can reduce the flood peak in this area. And also the ecosystem-based management, as this area is very, very vulnerable to, as this area is very, very rich in ecologically very rich. So we need to think a solution that should be nature-based, and it should support the natural ecosystem of this area. So this is kind of the approaches we are now thinking of for managing the flood in this area. And I would like to stop here and hope if you have any questions, then we can respond to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robin Kumar, for your great presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope your participants enjoyed both amazing presentations. We are proud to have more than 700 participants join our webinar today. More than twice as many as participants join our first webinar. Now we have 25 minutes question and answer sessions. Let's go ahead and take some questions now. Any one of you have a question? Okay.
Ishihara Sensei.
Okay.
From Japan Water Agency.
Mr. Amron, would you like, please? Okay, Mr. Amron, go ahead.
Dr. Amron, please.
Oh, Mr. Jihara, okay. Who is first? Mr. Jihara first, and the second, Mr. Amron. Mr. Jihara, please, your question. Host, unmute.
Thank you very much. Yes, I tried to unmute, but now I success. Thank you very much for the give a time to for a question. Thank you both presenters for the great presentation. I'm Nobuyuki Chara, Japan Water Agency, and also thank you for arrangement for all the Indonesian colleagues. I have one comment and question for the presentation from Dr. Ga from Vietnam. Yes, on her presentation, maybe the number 9, the slide showing the damage of the people and the economic damage for the disaster. Yes, according to my understanding, this slide shows the number of the personal human damage remain even if the climate change is the increase for damage of the Vietnam, but the human damage remain the number of the very low. I think is one of the successful contribution of the management of the concerned ministry and organization. But economical damage is increasing because Vietnam is increasing now the economical growth is rapidly. So I'd like to hear the comment from the Vietnam. According to your presentation, 6 number of the measures which Vietnam is tackling. What measure is most effective for the economic damage to reduce the economic damage? This is my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the comment and also question. As you know, Vietnam is most affected by both climate change and nature disease. Vietnamese government implement many methods to minimize the impact of the disaster. And over the past 10 years, we have tried to keep the human and economic damage low. But there are still many limitations we are facing with. And by joining the NARBO, we hope to learn from other country members to better our DRM activities. And I have to say that all of the 6 matters in slide 12 I already present is very important in reducing flood risk. And in the context of the climate change and increasing disaster, we need the holistic approach of the combining all of the matter at the same time, regardless of the structural and non-structural matter. If I must select the most important flood risk management method, I think it will be dike management with a long coastal line and denser rise river system. The dike system is effectively protect
protect us from floods. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, okay, let's go to the second question. Dr. Amron, please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon. Whether that's
Good afternoon.
my sound is clear, not clear.
Okay, very clear. Please go ahead and direct to the speaker, Mr. Lord, is Suyetna.
Thank you. If it is clear, then I would like to say that really to great speaker, and thank you to allow me to attend the webinar. First of all, I would like to ask about the Vietnam experience. I wonder that there is a kind of lesson learned from Vietnam that can be shared in terms of early warning system, and then the mitigation, that a lot of activity of that that's already presented. But is there any adaptation strategy to minimize the impact of the disaster? This is for the Dr. Twans. And for Bangladesh, I think that's really good about the transboundary water management, that you are sharing data with India. But what next is kind of expiring to us about afforestation for the coastal and retarding basin. How effective and how is being conducted successfully in Bangladesh? This, I would like to get kind of information about that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Dr. Tuyetna, you will answer the first question, and Dr. Robin Kumar, the next question, please. Go ahead. Dr. Tuyetna.
Okay, can I respond first?
Okay. Okay, Dr. Robin.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your concern and for your asking some very critical questions, I think. One is kind of the managing the transboundary river. As you see in my presentation, that we have 3 large basins located outside of this country. And 60% of the total flow is coming from outside of the country. And because of the natural or geographical position, as I showed, that the northeastern region is a kind of we have a central depression in the northeastern region. So water is easily accumulating in this area. So one thing is important for us is to predict the precipitation. So if we can predict the precipitation, even based on the satellite-based information, to calibrate or validate the satellite-based production, we need to have some information from the upstream basin area. So using those information, we can develop a good hydrological model. We have a hydrological model running right now, and we have a kind of the forecasting system in this area, but we have a very limited information from the upstream area. So if we can have some more data sets from the upstream area, then we can actually improve the strength and improve the lead time of forecasting in this area. And then the second part is about managing the embankment or going for the retarding basin or afforestation. This is a kind of the adaptation we want to adopt in the context of climate change. As you know that we can use the floodplain as a to reduce the flood field. If we can use wisely our floodplain, so we have 373 houses, and in many houses the agriculture is not so prominent. So if we can divert part of this water to this Howard area, then we can actually reduce the flood peak in the downstream area. And if we can reduce the flood in the downstream area, then we can actually save the rice in this area, as rice is the only one crops the people can grow in this area. So this is that is why we are thinking for water diversion and water retention. And then the second thing is that, as I mentioned in my presentation, we are using the submersible embankment in this area. Submersible embankment in the sense that it is ecologically very, very good for kind of the allowing the fish to use the floodplain. So, but the difficulty is that every year we need to maintain that submersible embankment. So to reduce the maintenance cost, we are thinking of afforestation in this embankment. And also we have a kind of the problem with the wave action. So if we can go for deforestation, then we can reduce part of the wave energy, and then the embankment system will be kind of the, we can save the crops in this area. So that is a kind of our thinking. We are thinking to apply that kind of adaptation approach apart from the structural and non-structural kind of the flood management measures. And thank you for your concern and thank you for your questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Robin. Dr. Don, will you add some more answer? Dr. Don Titunyet nga, are you still with us? Okay, we move to the next question from Mr. Ilham, please. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Also, thank you for the presentation. It's very, very nice and educating. I have only one small concern, that the flood that we always accuse because of the climate, yes, which is the main source of the disaster. But in the basin or in the catchment, there are many stakeholders that should also work together to minimize the disaster. So how these so many stakeholders can get together in one bowl, yeah, and have a power to decide what to be done. Because if we leave this responsibility only to the water institution, it's not fair. So, like presentation from Vietnam, she mentioned about this steering committee. What is the power of the steering committee? How the steering committee can guide those institutions that dealing with this flood event? I think also the same for the Bangladesh. Yes, I think Vietnam and Bangladesh. I think this is a country also have several international river. So we talk about the catchment, how this, this organization can work together. Thank you for attention.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ilham. Okay. Dr. Robin, are you still with us? Now we go to Dr. Tuyet Nga. Please, your answer.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for the question. It's very interesting question, but I think each country have the legal, and in my country, the National Steering Committee for Disaster Management, including the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Resource and Environment, and Ministry of Public Security, and other ministry. And the chairman is a vice prime minister, so he can decide everything, and he can ask other minister of other ministry. I don't know about the other country, but in my country, floods matter is not in charge in the water resource authority. Is related with the other authority. My authority is the Vietnam Disaster Management Authority. We in charge of dike management, and we also have a power to ask the other authority to support us when floods occurred.
Would you mind adding some more answer regarding question from Dr. Amron, adaptation strategy and early warning system in Vietnam, please?
For the sorry, I forgot the first question.
Yeah.
For the warning system, early warning system. In my country, we set up a lot of the real-time station, and we collect the information. The Ministry of Natural Resource and Environment, they in charge of the collect the data of the hydrometeorology, and they have to send the information for us, for the Vietnam Disaster Management Authority, and we decide to we will support to the government to decide the method and which way to again of the disaster. Yeah, I am sorry, I just have the answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Robin, will you add some more answer for Dr. Ilham question? Please unmute your voice, please.
We have a very, very diverse community when we are managing the flood, especially if you are looking in Bangladesh. We have a kind of the fishermen, businessmen, and then agriculture, of course. And their land use is also very, very different. So it's a really, really very challenging task to bring all the stakeholders to a common platform. And in the case of Bangladesh, if you are looking at the flood situation in the northeastern region of Bangladesh, so you can see that the people usually choose for high-yielding varieties of rice, and that actually takes longer duration to grow and to harvest. But because of the yield is very high, so they are usually choosing this kind of, and they are kind of risking their agricultural production. So I think the community awareness is very, very important, first of all. So if we can aware the community, that will be really, really helpful. And then we have a kind of the adaptation, if we can go for the adaptation to the climate change or flooding. So in that case, we need to think of a seasonal forecasting. If we can go for a seasonal forecasting, maybe 1 year ahead. So if we can go for a seasonal forecasting, then we can give the message to the community that, okay, maybe in the next year, you may have a huge flood is coming, so that they can take the decision by themselves. So I think information is very, very important to give the information in right time is also very important for the kind of adapting to this kind of the huge flood situation. So maybe I'm sorry because of the technical difficulties, I missed last part of your question. I'm very, very sorry. That's my response to your first part of your kind of the discussion. Thank you. I'm very sorry for that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Robin. Mr. Ilham, I hope you're satisfied with those answers. So we go to the next question from Mr. Ridwan Gunawan. Are you ready with your questions? Mr. Ridwan Gunawan, are you still with us?
Okay. Thank you for to invite me for this. It's very, very nice agenda. My question is for Miss Duan in Vietnam. As well as I know from Mrs. Duan presentation, there is a lot of way or a lot of method or countermeasure for reduce the flooding effect. Holistic as all of holistic method, which is very effective ways in Vietnam. There's a lot of ways such as make a dam or make a water reservoirs. And as I know, there's infiltration well, and which is the most effective ways in Vietnam countermeasure or method. This is my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Dr. Duanti Tuyanga.
Yes, I think maybe the question a little bit similar with the question from Mr. Ichihara. If I how to say if I must select the most important flood risk management method, I think it's the most affected is the dike management, because you know we have a very long dike, and dike is very affected for the Vietnamese people, and we have more than 1,000 year historical of the dike building. And because with the long coastal line and dense river system, so the dike system, I think that's for me, I think dike system is effectively protected from flood.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Duan, for your answer.
Thank you.
Okay, I saw Dr. Robert Purba raise your hand. Are you ready with your question? Are you still with us, Dr. Robert Purba? Or any other participant? Raise your hand, please. Dr. Sutardi, do you have your question? Mr. Sutardi Sudirman. Are you raising your hand, Mr. Sutardi? Okay, please, go ahead. Please unmute. Anyone can help Mr. Sutardi to unmute the volume, please? Okay, we go to Dr. Robert Purba. Please, Dr. Robert Purba, go ahead with your question.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Pa Ismail. Very interesting presentation from Vietnam and Bangladesh. My question may be more on the macroscopic terms, in terms of, we know that government, or we built water-related infrastructure for disaster mitigation. Yeah, but if you take a note, or maybe my question, did you monitor, over the years, does really do the disaster happen? Then because of this water-related infrastructure that have been built, is there any like alleviation or ease of a flood or ease of suffering for the people because of this infrastructure, or does it really keep up with the degradation of the land or forest or other nature-based that already available actually to retain that water? Yeah, do you really take a monitoring
Dr. Robert, unmute, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. You have really kind of pointing out a very big issue of monitoring the floods and monitoring the effectiveness of the flood management structures. So, yeah, I mean, for monitoring cases, yeah, we are monitoring the flood situation using the automatic system. Like, for example, we have the water level gauge station, so we are monitoring the flood. And we are also monitoring the performance of the water control structure, like the embankment and the other system as well. But in the case of Bangladesh, I mean, the basin which I actually talking about, the flood situation and its management approach is a bit different from the other part of this country. So I already mentioned about the submersible embankment system. So this system is very, very effective only for this area, because we need to support the ecosystem for this in this area. So this is very, very important. But when we are coming about the monitoring of this flood embankment, it's becoming a bit difficult because you know that almost 8 to 9 months, all of this embankment is remaining underwater. So the condition of this embankment monitoring is a bit difficult. But if you are looking at the effectiveness of this embankment system, I must say that it is performing really, really very good. So this embankment system is actually designed for a flood recurrence period of 10 years. So if we have a kind of the 10 years return period of flood, this embankment system is performing really very well. But we have experience in 2017 or in 2022, the rainfall incident was have a return period more than 100 years. And if we have a rainfall incidence more than 100 years, sometimes this embankment system is not performing well, because this system is designed only for managing the flood of 10 years. And the irony is that we cannot raise the embankment height, because if we are raising the embankment height, and this area is kind of located in the very depressed area. So because of the internal rainfall, again, this area will be inundated. So we need to keep we need to make a balance between this kind of the ecosystem services and the agriculture services. So we are, it's a kind of trade-off. So we are making that trade-off. So that is why we are thinking of a adaptation to this flood. So if we can go for the retardation basin or adaptation to the agriculture, so that might be very, very helpful. But in terms of the monitoring system, I think sometimes it's very, very critical for us as well. And thank you so for asking this question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Robin. Dr. Doan, will you add more?
So sorry because I cannot catch the question, so I have no more comment, yeah, and more answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We have had a discussion, very, very interesting. And ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we have limited time for our question and answer session. So the question from Dr. Robert Pulpa is the last question. It looks like we've covered all of our questions. Let's move to the closing remarks by Mr. Toshiro Suzuki. Mr. Suzuki, are you with us or are you not with us? Okay, please go ahead.
My name is Toshiro Suzuki, Director General for International Affairs, Japan Water Agency. Thank you to all participants in the Peupeo Dam Management Training and NARBO members for joining the NARBO webinar today. I was hoping to physically participate this webinar in Indonesia, but it is very sorry that I couldn't join it. This time, it is our pleasure to have NARBO webinar jointly with Peupeo's Dam Management Training course. Thank you very much for understanding and cooperation of PUPR and PJT2 Indonesia. As you observed lectures at this webinar, Ms. Gar and Mr. Robin made a presentation regarding their efforts for disaster mitigation of Vietnam and Bangladesh. Both presentations were made from the standpoint of practitioners in water resource management. The situation of water resources, such as climate, infrastructures, organizations, policies, differs from country to country. But we believe that understanding the efforts and examples in other countries can be helpful as a reference when you encounter challenges. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude again to Ms. Gar and Mr. Robin for their contribution today. NARBO is a network of Asian river basin organizations. Since its establishment, NARBO has been shared the experiences and challenges of practitioners in each country with advice from academics and others. Through this knowledge sharing, NARBO is expected to support practitioners in each country as a kind of platform and promote implementation of IWRM. As you know well, the 10th World Water Forum will be held in Indonesia next year. We are currently considering to hold 2 or 3 more webinars like the one today before the World Water Forum to exchange practitioners' experience and opinions on water resources management. We hope you will participate in the next NARBO webinar and join the discussion. I'd like to thank again all of you in this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Suzuki, for your interesting remarks. And thank you again to all speakers for the great presentation and for answering questions. It was a pleasure to have you with us. And let me also thank all committees and everyone who prepared this webinar well, Mr. Ota, Mr. Ichihara, Dr. Imam Santoso, Mr. Anton and team, Bu Fitri, Pak Heri and team, and everyone who have made our webinar successful. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me wrap up our webinar today with 4 sentences. Improving resilience against natural disasters is essential. the role of resilient, multi-purpose water-related infrastructures against natural disasters is crucial. For example, dikes, dams, etc. Dam structures and reservoir may offer flood protection by regulating water discharge and balancing runoff differences. They may also help improve resilience against natural hazards. So, finally, we come to the closing of our webinar. Let me remind you again, our event next year, the 10th World Water Forum. We appreciate your being with us today and care about your participation. We hope you have learned and enjoyed today's webinar. We encourage you to keep contact with us by email or other media. See you on our next webinar on May of this year. Have a good day and bye-bye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Much for this question, Dr. Ismail. Can we take a picture together? I think.
Okay, everyone, please show up your face with your best smile.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Next slide. One, two, three, and then next slide, please. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next slide. 1, 2, 3. Big smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, big smile again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the last one is 1, 2, 3. Okay, big smile. Okay. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for attending this webinar, and see you on the next webinar on May this year. And we hope that all of you will join with us together and attend the next seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Water forms the basis of human lives and society throughout the globe. In this century, efficient water governance is increasingly important within the context of water degradation on one hand and increasing demand on the other hand due to rapid population growth, economic development, increasing demand on food and energy, and climate change. Integrated Water Resources Management, or IWRM, is one of the internationally accepted approaches for efficient governance of managing finite water resources. The increasing challenges to water have driven water users, professionals, and practitioners in Asia to share knowledge, experiences, and good practices to improve water governance within the Asia-Pacific region. In March 2003, Japan Water Agency, Asian Development Bank, and the ADB Institute signed a letter of intent at the Third World Water Forum in Kyoto for the establishment of a network of Asian River Basin Organizations, or NARBO, which was formally launched the following year at the first general meeting in Batu, Indonesia, with 43 members from 14 countries of RBOs, government agencies, and knowledge partners. NARBO aims to share knowledge, experiences, and good practices of IWRM. NARBO has a charter and a periodically updated action plan providing framework and timely scope for its activities, which includes training courses, thematic workshops, and twinning programs. Since 2005, NARBO has piloted a benchmarking program for river basin organizations in Indonesia, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia to improve their performance for better governance in river basins. NARBO members receive benefits from sharing basin experience at various regional forums that tackle issues on water governance, climate change adaptation, water-related disaster management, water, food, energy nexus, and other basin challenges. After 10 years from its establishment, NARBO has grown to embrace 84 members from 18 countries, including a new Secretariat of Center for River Basin Organizations and Management, and plays a strategic role for IWRM and water governance in Asia. Prominent outcomes from a decade of activities include institutionalized RBO performance benchmarking in Indonesia and the Philippines, and a solid framework for RBOs to introduce the IWRM approach, and to strengthen the capacities and effectiveness of RBOs to promote IWRM and improve water governance. In the second decade of NARBO activities, the keywords include water governance.
Clearly, water governance encapsulates a range of topics from policy level down to operational level, including understandings on water resources within a basin, national level, and transboundary.
Leadership,
which has particularly exposed the LLDA in leadership roles within the network. And that also has brought a lot of enhancement to the water leadership capacities of LLDA.
Young leaders, youth leaders can inject new enthusiasm, new vision, and a much more efficient way of working, connected way of working, to make changes happen and to become change makers.
Sustainability.
I heard that more than 18 countries now become the member of NARBO. It is impressive. Okay? So now that's also maybe the biggest contribution of NARBO, and we have to take care of that. We have to look after the NARBO organization for the sustainability of its life.
And ownership.
They develop also for the focal point its countries. And we ask them to add local module. Yeah. Especially to inform the experience, the implementation of the related issues. This is very, very good one. So according to my opinion, as an example, how we create a membership, ownership. Yeah, ownership of the members.
Looking into the future, NARBO needs to work very hard on two areas. First, we need to strengthen the structure of NARBO to make it more sustainable. And secondly, we need to refocus our work so that we can meet the challenges of the future where there is so much changes coming in.
NARBO looks forward to growing into a global water initiative to support river basin organizations to achieve the ultimate goal of water security.